The sun hung high over the parade ground that afternoon, and Sergeant Ellie Davis stood perfectly still, though her heart was pounding beneath her uniform. 3 scars traced her cheek like a map of survival, each one a memory she carried without complaint. She had not expected to be singled out today. She had not expected anyone to raise a voice at her in front of an entire battalion, least of all the general's own son. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. Captain Harrison's finger jabbed the air inches from her face, his voice cracking through the stillness like a whip. You think that medal makes you special? He barked, loud enough for the front rows of soldiers to hear, loud enough for whispers to ripple backward through the formation like wind through wheat. Ellie didn't flinch. She had learned long ago that flinching only invited more. But inside, something old and tender twisted. The same ache she'd felt the night the shrapnel found her, the night she'd dragged 2 wounded men through burning dust while everything around her screamed. General Harrison stood between them, arms folded, his weathered face unreadable. He was a man built from 4 decades of discipline, a man who had buried friends and shaken hands with presidents. And yet in this moment, he said nothing. The silence was its own kind of violence. Somewhere behind him, the crowd of soldiers shifted uneasily, their boots scraping gravel, their eyes darting between father, son, and the woman caught in the middle. Ellie's mind drifted, unbidden, to the desert 2 years ago, the roar of the explosion, the metallic taste of blood, the way the world had gone white and silent before the screaming started again. She remembered Private Alvarez's hand gripping hers as she pulled him from the wreckage. She remembered promising him he would see his daughter again. She had kept that promise. It had cost her the left side of her face, and apparently, in Captain Harrison's eyes, it had cost her nothing at all. Do you even know what that medal means? The captain pressed, his voice rising further, his composure cracking at the seams. He believed she'd been given special treatment, some administrative favor, a story polished for public relations. He was wrong. But pride is a stubborn thing, and stubborn men rarely pause to ask before they accuse. She thought she'd never have to explain herself again. She was wrong. With respect, sir, Ellie said quietly, her voice steady despite the tremble in her hands. I know exactly what it means. I was there when it was earned. Her words landed like a stone dropped into still water, rings spreading outward through the crowd. A few soldiers exchanged glances. Somewhere in the back, someone murmured her name, not Sergeant Davis, but a name spoken with reverence, the way people speak of things they've only heard in stories. The general's eyes narrowed. Something shifted behind them, some old recognition trying to surface through the fog of ceremony and protocol. He stepped forward, studying the medal hanging against her chest, studying the scars that framed her jaw like punctuation marks on a sentence no one else could read. The air seemed to thicken. Dust drifted lazily through a shaft of afternoon sunlight, and for a moment, the entire ground seemed to hold its breath. Say that name again, the general said, his voice suddenly low, almost fragile. Alvarez, sir. Private First Class Miguel Alvarez. I pulled him out. I carried him 400 meters under fire. Ellie's throat tightened, but she pushed forward, because some truths deserve to be spoken even when they cost you something to say. He's alive because of that day. He has 3 children now. I didn't do it for a medal. I did it because leaving him behind wasn't something I could live with. The general's composure broke, just slightly, a widening of the eyes, a catch in the breath. Because Miguel Alvarez was his nephew. The revelation moved through the crowd like a current through water, soldiers straightening, murmurs swelling into a low, disbelieving hum. Captain Harrison's arm, still raised in accusation, slowly lowered, his face draining of color. He had spent the last 3 minutes tearing down the very woman who had saved his own cousin's life, and the weight of that mistake settled onto his shoulders like a physical thing. There is a particular kind of silence that follows public shame, heavier than any spoken apology, more honest than any excuse. The general turned to his son, and though his voice was quiet, every soldier on that field heard it. You owe this woman more than an apology. You owe her your understanding of what courage actually costs. Captain Harrison's throat worked, and for the first time that day, the arrogance drained out of him entirely. He turned to Ellie, and in front of hundreds of witnesses, he did something far harder than shouting. He apologized, plainly, and without excuse. The crowd did not laugh, did not gloat. Instead, applause rose slowly, hesitantly, then swelled into something warm and unstoppable, a wave of respect breaking over the parade ground like sunrise breaking over a battlefield gone quiet. Ellie Davis stood there, scars catching the light, and felt something inside her finally exhale. Because kindness doesn't vanish, it waits, and it finds its way back, sometimes across years and battlefields, arriving exactly when it's needed most. And on that sunlit field, beneath a banner promising leadership, duty, and respect, one woman's quiet courage finally received the light it had always deserved. If this story moved you, tell us in the comments what part touched you most. And if you believe courage deserves to be recognized, hit subscribe so you never miss the next story of quiet heroes who finally get their moment.